The Silent Hill franchise seems to be on quite the upturn lately. Last year's remake of Silent Hill 2 gave it a desperately needed shot in the arm, and now it seems like it has no intention of slowing down. Before that though, for many years, the series sat frozen in time. We were left with just 8 mainline games with quite a rift in between them. The first 4 games, developed in Japan by Team Silent, are all generally beloved. The latter 4, though, saw the series getting tossed around to different developers, with the games they made receiving middling fan and critical reception. To some degree, that's probably warranted, but Silent Hill Shattered Memories is one of those 4 games, and let me tell you, you need to play it. If you're a fan of the original Silent Hill, you've actually already got some familiarity with Shattered Memories, as it's not a sequel or spin-off, but rather a complete reimagining of that first game. Instead of exploring new mythology and creating another sequel, Climax Studios decided to revisit where it all started from an entirely different perspective. You play as Harry Mason, who's searching through the town of Silent Hill to find his daughter Cheryl after a late-night car crash. Such a scenario is terrifying in its own right, but of course, doing it in the town of Silent Hill is bound to make it much more complicated. Silent Hill is a survival horror franchise in a fairly traditional sense. You're fighting off enemies, you're managing a limited supply of ammo and health items, all the classic stuff. Shattered Memories turns these genre tropes completely on their heads. Gameplay is split into 3 distinct sections, all of which are entirely unique from one another. The bulk of the game is predicated upon exploring a myriad of environments within Silent Hill. Harry is equipped with nothing but a flashlight as he trudges through snow and uncertainty alike. As the game begins, you'd be forgiven for expecting a bloody nurse or prismatic killer to pop out from behind the corner, but that doesn't happen. In fact, it would appear that just about everyone is gone. As you explore, you're not in any danger. Instead, you're free to soak in each area, reading posters or opening boxes. Now, you're not always safe, of course, but more on that in a minute.
Strange.
Without question, one of the strongest elements of Shattered Memories is exploration. To be clear, this isn't an open world of any kind. You're not free to roam Silent Hill at your leisure. Each of the exploratory stretches are entirely linear, placing you into a different section of the town and its surrounding areas. For many, I know that the word linear may carry disappointment, but I've been craving more linear games lately, and Shattered Memories perfectly scratches that itch. Each environment feels carefully crafted and, most importantly, real. Creating levels that feel like actual places instead of, well, levels is, I have to imagine, a massive design challenge. Climax pulls it off though, with an even split of interior and exterior environments. The former spaces feature plentiful variety. We've got a bar, a high school, a mall, a movie theater. Almost any place you'd expect to see in a small town is on display here. You might expect that exploring outside would be less engaging, but that's not the case at all. Trudging through abandoned roadways in the middle of a blizzard is such a cozy yet unsettling experience, and the massive accumulation of snow provides a great way to diegetically block off areas not intended to be seen. No invisible walls in Shattered Memories, just massive piles of Mother Nature. These quieter moments are also where the story is conveyed as Harry encounters some of the strange denizens of this town. The narrative is presented through various cutscenes, as well as some real-time exchanges where you walk with a companion. The plot is refreshingly simple, driven by Harry's must-find daughter tunnel vision. It never gets bogged down by confusing mythology or intrusive twists, instead preferring to focus on the characters. Pretty much everybody manages to be likable while still feeling slightly off, exactly what you'd expect from residents of Silent Hill. If you want to dig deeper though, you can find a ton of different voicemails and texts that can be listened to or read through Harry's in-game cell phone, which I'll discuss more in a bit. These extra slices of info are not required, but add a ton of texture to the overall story and are particularly interesting upon subsequent playthroughs. Now, if you're worried that this entire game is nothing more than a spooky trot through town, allow me to assuage your fears. As I mentioned, Harry isn't always safe, a cruel fact that he discovers early on in his journey. At specific points in the story, you're pursued by some sort of fleshy, faceless monstrosities who seek only to take you down. They utter strange, piercing screams and will sprint relentlessly to catch you as soon as you're in their sights. They're not fun to be around and warrant a few shotgun shells to shut them up, but that's not gonna happen in Shattered Memories. Harry doesn't have a shotgun, or a crowbar, or any weapons for that matter. He's just some guy, so fighting back isn't an option. That just leaves running and hiding. You can tuck yourself away in the occasional locker or bed, but it won't take very long for the creatures to discover you, which means that hoofing it is really the only way out of this nightmare. Each chase sequence occurs at specific points in the game and is indicated by a real-time transition from Silent Hill to some sort of icy hellscape, as oxymoronic as that may sound. At this point, the sightseeing is over, and Harry gains the ability to sprint. He can move quickly, but very important to note is that the enemies can move quicker. Once they see you, they are going to catch you, unless you manage to shake them off your trail. This can be done by running through enough doors to give them the slip, or by using the game's sole defensive item, the flare. These bad boys can occasionally be found on the ground and are really only good for buying you a few seconds of safety. Still, it's better than nothing. These chase sequences appear to be one of the more contentious elements of the game, and I'm not surprised to hear that. Each of them take place in decidedly labyrinthine levels, making it extremely easy to get turned around. There is a map on your phone to help point you in the right direction, but pulling it up does not pause the game, meaning that it's often pointless to attempt using. When an enemy grabs onto you, you can shake them off, but it only takes a few attacks before Harry is out of commission. On your first playthrough, it's likely that you're going to have to play some of these sections more than once, which can be frustrating. Most of them simply ask you to get from point A to B, but on occasion, you receive an objective to complete within the level, which only ups the odds of death even more. I don't want to scare anyone off though. By and large, you will figure it out eventually, and they only make up about a quarter or so of the game's runtime. Some prefer to fight back and find the running and hiding gameplay loop to lack depth, which I completely understand and largely agree with. I think what makes it work well here is its binary nature. You're either in danger or you're not, and you'll always know which side of the coin is facing up. This isn't Outlast, for example, where you're always on edge, wondering what's around the next corner. You'll learn quickly that Shattered Memories isn't interested in that kind of suspense, and while some people may actually prefer that, the setup here prevents the moments where you do need to be afraid from wearing out their welcome.
I'm glad you came. Just turning up shows your commitment to the process. Good.
The final pillar of gameplay is completely different from the other two and plays a huge role in providing this game with such a unique fingerprint. At various points in the adventure, you'll find yourself out of Silent Hill and in a therapist's office. Playing from a first-person perspective, you're tasked with completing various behavioral exercises to help this enigmatic counselor learn who you are. Maybe you need to fill out a questionnaire, color a picture, or sort imagery based upon its degree of sexuality. The tasks run the gamut and always remain interesting. These chunks are so incredibly distinct from the rest of the game and are often presented upon the completion of a chase sequence or major story beat, giving you some much needed time to catch your breath. You may be asking yourself, what's the point of these segments? Well, that's a good question. The first thing you'll see when booting up Shattered Memories is a warning. This game plays you as much as you play it, it claims. That might be a bit hyperbolic, but still, this heads up holds water. The decisions that you make during your sessions of therapy have real ramifications on what Harry experiences back in town. It's hard to say exactly what behavior leads to what outcome, but it's unlikely that any two playthroughs will be exactly the same. Beyond cosmetic differences on display, you may find yourself meeting one character that a different player missed entirely. Beyond that, even a character that both players meet may behave differently. Your version of Harry will behave differently. This system is only so ambitious, you're not going to see massive stretches of a level that someone else wouldn't, but the system is an extremely effective way of making the player feel like their experience is entirely tailored to them. It also motivates multiple playthroughs to see all of the game's various secrets and endings, which isn't hard to do given the game's brief 6 to 8 hour runtime. It's easy to scoff at that opening text, but this is the kind of choice and consequence system that I'd love to see in more games. You're not picking dialogue options from a list, you're just playing. Even looking at certain posters or people as Harry will change how the game unfolds. The choices and outcomes are obfuscated and not binary, making this implementation much smoother and more immersive. Immersion is, without question, one of the seminal words to describe Silent Hill Shattered Memories. I would bet money that that was written on a whiteboard somewhere during development. This game is always working to keep you immersed, and that manifests all over the place. For example, if you want to read a poster on the wall, you just read it. You don't click on a separate menu where the text is presented more cleanly, you just stare at it over Harry's shoulder. Harry will even comment on what you look at.
No need for a hydraulic ramp.
The game features no loading screens, with levels often shifting in real time. The HUD is virtually non-existent, instead placed inside of Harry's aforementioned cell phone. This handy tool can be pulled out at almost any time in the game and serves so many functions. It holds your map, it's where you change the settings, it's a camera, and of course, it's a functional phone. There are a ton of phone numbers scattered around the city that you can actually call, which contain optional voicemails and dialogue. Want to call 911? You can. It's such a cool addition and is one of many ways in which this game keeps you locked in. Immersion in games is a topic I could spend an entire video discussing. It's really hard to maintain, but this is a game that manages to do so, and is so much better for it. These little touches really make a difference. Even aiming Harry's flashlight with the Wii remote feels organic.
You want my jacket? You're going to freeze.
I'm used to running around in a dress. I'm too hot-blooded to feel the cold.
I feel bad, you're sure?
Yeah, keep it. You're the car crash guy.
Oh yeah, did I mention this is a Wii game? The game is also playable on PS2 and PSP, but unlike most multi-platform titles of the era, the Wii version is easily the best. The game was clearly designed with that system in mind. Controlling the flashlight by actually aiming it feels great. Beyond that, all the voicemails and phone calls actually come through the Wii remote. I know some people find this type of stuff gimmicky, but I think it's cool. The one area that probably warrants some controversy is how the motion controls function during chase sequences. When an enemy jumps on Harry, you have to thrust the controls in one of 4 directions depending upon which side of Harry the pesky bugger's hanging onto. Now, I've heard some people complain that the controls don't work well, but I don't have that issue. You just gotta do it like this guy. Some people just hate motion controls, I totally get it, but trust me when I say that Climax uses the Wii's functions very smartly. Perhaps more importantly though, the studio managed to push the Wii way beyond what you'd expect from a third party. This is easily one of the most impressive Wii games from a technical standpoint, with facial animation that looks better than that of contemporary games on the more powerful consoles. I have no idea how they pulled a lot of this off, but they did.
Don't blame yourself. Blame the world. Blame God. Blame me.
As always, I know that nostalgia colors my perception. I bought this game as soon as it released back in 2009, which was shortly after my 14th birthday. That's prime time for some formative memories, and I've got a lot associated with shattered memories. Still, some games are just more than the sum of their parts, and this game is one of them. Exploring an abandoned Silent Hill fast food joint while Akira Yamaoka's beautifully haunting soundtrack sets the mood is just special. It's interesting, I mentioned recently in a video essay about Silksong that skillful iteration is just as valid as innovation, but here's a game that perfectly exemplifies the virtues of the latter. Instead of making another Silent Hill game, Climax Studios decided to make something boldly different. Of course, if they didn't execute well on those ideas, it's mostly for naught, but they did. Some people aren't going to like this game for one reason or another, and that's completely fair, but here's a game that proves that compelling horror need not contain gratuitous violence, that long, uninterrupted stretches of quiet exploration can be compelling, that video games can feature therapy sessions. Silent Hill Shattered Memories pushes the medium out of its comfort zone, and I suspect inspired many of the experimental titles we see today. If you're up for the journey, grab your flashlight and bundle up. It's gonna be a long night.